Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. It was the summer of 1997 when Emma Clarkson picked up a night shift job at the Taco Bell off Highway 33, just outside the fading little town of Wellington Ridge, Ohio. She was 19, home from her first year at Ohio State, and determined to make some money for textbooks and rent. Her parents still lived 2 towns over, but Emma wanted a taste of independence, even if that meant scrubbing sticky tables and breathing fryer grease until 2 a.m. The Taco Bell sat at the edge of a dying strip mall, one of those sad, cracked concrete relics from the 80s that still held on by a thread. The old video rental store next door had gone out of business, and the dollar store and dingy 24-hour gym had followed shortly after. A few flickering lampposts buzzed half-heartedly in the parking lot, casting long, jumpy shadows over the cracked pavement. It always smelled vaguely like burnt oil and damp cardboard inside. Emma's cousin Kelly had worked there the summer before and helped her land the job. "You'll be fine," Kelly had said casually as Emma filled out her W-4 in the cramped office. "Just don't hang out in the back alone for too long. It's weird back there sometimes." Emma had rolled her eyes. "You're such a drama queen." "I'm serious," Kelly said, deadpan. "It's like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel empty even when it is." Emma didn't press. Kelly was always a little too into her own stories. By mid-June, Emma had found her groove. She worked from 6 p.m. to close, rotating between front counter, the drive-through headset, and cleaning the sticky tables in the dining area. The late shift was usually dead quiet. After 9 p.m., it was mostly stoned college kids laughing too loud, or long-haul truckers in need of something warm and greasy before they got back on the road. The night crew was small, tight even, in that way people get when they're all stuck in the same place past midnight. Megan, the assistant manager, was sharp-tongued, but no nonsense, with a soft spot for cinnamon twists. Jamal, who washed dishes and did floor work, was shy but funny in an understated way. And then there was Darren, who almost never spoke unless it was about food prep, and who always kept to the back like he was hiding from someone. The store layout was simple. There was the kitchen, a short hallway leading to the back door, a narrow break room that doubled as dry storage, and the walk-in freezer. But what stuck with Emma, what unnerved her even from her first week, was the supply closet. It wasn't even a proper closet, more like an oversized utility nook carved awkwardly into the back hall. There was a mop sink, metal shelves jammed with cleaning supplies, and a single flickering bulb overhead that hesitated every time you flipped the switch. No door, just a heavy black plastic curtain you had to brush aside, the kind of plastic that sticks to your arm in humid air. Emma hated that space. She couldn't explain why. It wasn't just the mildewy, sweet smell that clung to everything in there, or how the curtain swayed slightly, even when the air was still. It was the feeling, like being watched, like something in there noticed her before she ever stepped inside. It was a Wednesday night in early July when it happened. The shift had been uneventful, slow, quiet. Just a couple sitting near the window nursing cold Baja blasts and picking at their food. Megan was outside on break, smoking in the alley. Jamal was pushing a mop past the restrooms. Emma was restocking the front when Megan's voice crackled over the headset. "Hey, we're low on bleach. Can you grab some from the closet?" Emma sighed, wiped her palms on her apron, and made her way toward the back. Past the fryers, down the narrow hallway. She paused at the curtain. It was already halfway open. She frowned. That wasn't normal. The curtain usually hung stiff, sealed shut from steam and disuse. She hesitated. "Hello," she called out, voice laced with forced humor. "If you're a rat, blink twice." No answer. She pushed the curtain back, feeling that odd resistance of the plastic clinging to her forearm. The light stuttered to life after a few seconds. Her eyes adjusted, and then she froze. In the far corner, half concealed behind a stack of disused boxes, someone was sitting. A man. He was folded into the space, crouched with knees to chest, wearing a pale blue hoodie that looked almost gray in the weak light. His head was tilted, just slightly, like he was listening. But he didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She took a shaky step back, then another. Her shoulder hit the metal shelving hard, knocking over a bottle of detergent. It crashed to the floor, sloshing out thick blue liquid. "Jamal, Megan!" she screamed. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Jamal arrived first, wide-eyed and tense. Megan pushed past him, flung the curtain aside. Empty. Just the mop sink, stale air, boxes and bleach. No man, no hoodie, no eyes watching. Emma's mouth moved before her brain could catch up. There was someone. He was right there, I swear, sitting behind the boxes. Megan squinted inside, scanning the space. "You sure? There's no one here." "I'm not making it up," Emma said, voice trembling. He didn't even look scared, just still. Jamal scratched the back of his head, clearly uncomfortable. Maybe it was a shadow? That light's busted. Could have flickered weird. Emma shook her head. No, I saw the fabric of his hoodie. I saw his eyes. He was real. Megan let the curtain fall shut. "Look, weird stuff happens on night shifts. Sleep deprivation, stress. One time I thought I saw a raccoon in the freezer. It was a mop handle. Shit messes with you." Emma wanted to argue, to make them believe her, but the words didn't come. Her heart was still hammering. Her palms were damp, and deep down she knew. She hadn't imagined it. She'd seen the folds in his sweatshirt, the shimmer of his eyes catching the flickering light. And what haunted her most, what twisted her stomach into cold knots even as she stood surrounded by co-workers, was that he didn't look surprised to see her, like he'd been waiting. He just sat there, still, calm, watching her like he had all the time in the world. 2 weeks crawled by after that night, and Emma did her best to move on. She told herself it was stress, poor sleep, some kind of optical illusion, but she couldn't bring herself to go into the back alone anymore. She started making excuses. "I've got a headache. Can someone come with me?" And Megan, though annoyed, didn't press. Maybe she figured Emma would get over it on her own. But Emma didn't. Not really. Then one Thursday night around 10:30 p.m., things unraveled again. Megan had left early for a family emergency, muttering something about her sister and a broken wrist as she grabbed her keys and bolted out the back door. Jamal was left to juggle the drive-thru alone, headset on, shouting over static and fryer noise while orders backed up. Emma was wiping down tables out front, trying not to think too hard. The dining area was completely empty. Or so she thought. When she turned around, her breath caught. He was there. Same man, same pale blue hoodie, sitting in the corner booth by the window like he belonged there, head slightly tilted, eyes locked on her. No tray, came through for a night shift assistant manager at a Taco Bell in some nowhere town called Brookhaven Crossing, South Carolina. I didn't hesitate. Graveyard shift? Fine. Creepy location? Whatever. They were paying, and that's all I cared about. Looking back, though, I wish I had taken the warning signs seriously. The Taco Bell sat just outside of town, where the gas station started to disappear and thick woods pressed in close to the road. Everyone in Brookhaven Crossing seemed to know the land's history. Said it used to be the site of the Thornbridge Hotel, a once grand inn that burned down in 1972 during a freak New Year's Eve fire. The story went that it started in the basement and spread so fast that dozens of guests didn't make it out. Locals claimed you could hear the screams all the way down on Main Street. I brushed it off. Urban legends, right? Shelby, the manager, didn't even bother with small talk when I arrived. Just handed me a uniform shirt and a laminated task list like she was dealing cards at a bad poker table. Mid-40s, hair tied back so tight it looked painful, and a face that hadn't smiled in years. "Keep the night crew in line, keep the floors clean, and don't let the fryers back up," she said flatly, flipping through a clipboard. Then she paused and added, "And if anything weird happened, ignore it. These old buildings make noise." I waited for a smirk, a wink, some hint she was joking. But there was nothing. Her eyes stayed locked on mine, serious as a heart attack. I figured she meant rats, or maybe faulty wiring, whatever. My first shift was a Thursday. That kind of bone-deep cold that doesn't quite freeze your skin, but makes every joint in your body ache like you've been carrying something heavy all day. I pulled into the lot just before 9:45 p.m. The place was dead. A single light above the back door flickered weakly, buzzing like a dying fly. I chalked it up to a loose bulb. Inside, the crew was already milling around. There were only 3 of us on schedule that night. Mason, this wiry kid with sunken eyes who looked like he hadn't slept in a month, and Jasmine, who had apparently been working there on and off for about a year. She was quiet, almost too quiet. Spoke softly, barely looked anyone in the eye, and always kept her gaze low, like the floor had secrets she didn't want to miss. "Hey," I greeted, nodding at them. Jasmine glanced up and gave a small, shy smile. "You're the new night manager?" "Yeah, first night," I said, trying to sound confident. Mason didn't say anything at first, just muttered to himself and went back to setting up the hotline. I watched him for a second. Something about his movements felt twitchy, off. "You good?" I asked. He paused, real slow, and turned to face me. His eyes were glassy and sunken, but there was something else in them, like fear with no place to go. "You'll see," he said, voice low and flat. I frowned. "See what?" He didn't respond, just went back to prepping like I hadn't spoken. Jasmine stepped in. "Don't mind him," she said quietly. "Nights get weird here. People say things." I let out a small chuckle, trying to play it off. "Yeah? What kind of things?" She hesitated, wiping her hands on a towel, still not meeting my eyes. "Things don't stay where you left them. You hear stuff when you're alone. Sometimes." The drive-thru talks back. I blinked. "The drive-thru talks back?" She finally looked up at me. Her eyes were serious. "I'm not joking. Sometimes it speaks before the headset even picks anything up." That unsettled me more than I wanted to admit, but I forced a laugh. "All right, haunted intercom. Got it." At 10 p.m., the shift officially started. I did my rounds, checked the fryers, walked the floor, tested the restroom locks. Everything was as expected. Old, yeah, with yellowed ceiling tiles and that ever-present smell of grease that no amount of bleach could kill. But nothing out of the ordinary. No ghosts. No voices. Still, there was a feeling. Like when you're walking in the woods and suddenly realize you don't recognize any of the trees anymore. The space just felt wrong. Around 11:15, Mason wandered up behind me while I was restocking the soda station. "You ever hear about the freezer?" he asked without preamble. I looked up. No, what about it? They say that's where the fire started, at the Thornbridge Hotel. The basement lined up right under the walk-in freezer. I raised an eyebrow. That's a hell of a coincidence. He leaned in a little closer, voice dropping to a whisper. Last year, a guy named Trevor worked here. Big guy. Used to take the night shift solo sometimes. One night, he locked himself in the freezer, broke 3 of his own fingers trying to claw his way out. Mason said, voice flat like he was reading from a police report. I blinked at him, waiting for the punchline. Nothing. When they found him, he continued, he wouldn't stop screaming. Said someone was whispering to him the whole time. Said it was inside with him. I just stared, the silence stretching between us until I forced a chuckle. All right, so, rule number 1, don't go into the freezer alone. He didn't laugh, just turned back to slicing onions. By midnight, the drive-thru had gone dead. Not a single car in almost an hour. Jasmine had started scrubbing the tile floors near the counter, her mop gliding in slow circles, while Mason kept prepping for morning. I was behind the register checking inventory numbers on the touchscreen when my headset hissed. Not static, not white noise. A whisper, clear, sharp, but not in any language I recognized. Breathy, wet, like someone whispering from underwater. I froze. Jasmine, I said, slowly turning to face her. Did you hear that? She paused mid-scrub, her face pale, and gave the smallest of nods. Yeah, she said quietly, like she'd been expecting it. I ripped the headset off and checked the drive-thru monitor. The camera showed nothing but empty asphalt under a flickering floodlight. No car, no customer, no one. That's how it starts, Mason said from across the kitchen. The whispers. Then the freezer opens. I forced a laugh. Come on, are you both screwing with me? But when I turned back toward the kitchen, the heavy freezer door, sealed shut minutes ago, was creaking open. Slow, deliberate, like something inside was pushing it open just enough to be noticed. Mason, I barked. Is this some kind of joke? He was already backing away, face drained of color. I didn't touch it. Jasmine dropped her mop with a clatter. We need to go, she whispered. It's starting again. The door was wide open now. A wave of frigid air rolled out, curling around our ankles. But it wasn't just cold. It carried something else. A smell. Wet ash. Burnt plastic. Rotting fabric. It hit like a wall. My stomach flipped. Then came the flies. They swarmed out of the freezer like a cloud. Dozens, no, hundreds, bursting into the kitchen, zipping through the air, slamming into lights. It didn't make sense. It was winter. The doors were sealed. There shouldn't have been a single fly in the building. They clustered near the ceiling, then scattered wildly. One landed on my cheek. I slapped it away, heart racing. The air had turned thick, heavy, almost syrupy. Every breath felt like it took effort. Then came the hum. Not from a machine, not electrical. It vibrated through my chest. A low, resonant thrum like someone had struck a tuning fork inside the building itself. The fire alarm shrieked to life. I spun around. No smoke, no flames, until the fryer behind me belched fire. A burst of orange erupted from the oil, sending Mason stumbling back, screaming. Jasmine knocked over the mop bucket trying to run. I grabbed the extinguisher and sprayed the fryer down, killing the flames. But the smell had changed. No longer just burnt oil. It smelled like something worse. Flesh. Burnt, rotting flesh. We all just stood there, stunned. The humming stopped. The flies vanished. The lights flickered once more, then steadied. No one said a word. Mason pulled off his headset, let it drop to the floor, and walked out the back door without a word. Jasmine stared after him, then turned to me. I've seen things, she said, voice trembling. Shadows under the ice machine, hands where there shouldn't be hands. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her keys. I told Shelby I'd stay until they found someone new. But I'm done. I can't do this anymore. She set the keys on the counter and walked away. Just like that, I was alone. The silence after they left felt alive. I stood there frozen, unable to move, ears ringing from the sudden absence of sound. Then, as if someone flipped a switch, the lights died. All of them. No hum from the machines, no buzz from the ceiling lights, not even the freezer's mechanical drone. Darkness, complete and suffocating. I grabbed my phone. No signal, battery at 8%. I turned on the flashlight. It flickered weakly, the beam barely cutting through the dark like a candle in a windstorm. I turned toward the dining area. They were there. Figures, pale, translucent, faded like sun-bleached photographs. A man in a tuxedo, the left side of his skull blackened and caved in. A woman in a flapper dress, her face melted into something unrecognizable, lips twisted and eyes vacant. Then the child. No jaw, just a wide, gaping mouth. But I heard it, felt it. A piercing scream in my head that didn't come through my ears. It was sharp, painful, like glass dragged across my brain. I backed away, trembling. The door wouldn't budge. I pulled, shoved, slammed into it with my shoulder. Nothing. The woman stepped forward, then the man, then more of them, 5, 10, a crowd, dozens of faces locked in eternal screams, hands reaching, bodies warped, skin sagging like it had melted and never healed. I grabbed a chair and hurled it at the window. The glass cracked. Again, the window shattered. Cold air rushed in. I didn't care about the shards slicing my arms, my legs, my face. I climbed through the jagged frame, boots crunching over glass, and I ran. I ran until my lungs burned. I don't remember how far or how long. They found me the next morning 2 blocks away, barefoot, covered in blood, soot, and cuts. I was muttering something about the Thorn Bridge, over and over. I never went back. Shelby texted once. "We found your name tag. You okay?" I never answered. Working the late shift at Taco King because I needed the money. No mystery there. I was 23, barely keeping my head above water after dropping out of college. Bills piled up fast, and so did the exhaustion. The Taco King sat just off a dim, winding stretch of highway in Milburn, a town people barely noticed unless they needed gas or were headed to the coast. The store stayed open until 2 a.m., which meant we got a rotating cast of characters. Graveyard shift workers grabbing dinner, drunk 20-somethings trying to soak up tequila, and sometimes a bored cop looking for free refills and quiet. It was a slow Tuesday when it happened. The kind of night where the silence gets loud and the clock ticks like it's mocking you. I was dragging through my routine, counting mop strokes just to keep my brain from going flat. But nothing, and I mean nothing, in the months I'd worked, there could have prepared me for how that night unraveled. It started off normal enough. The 9 p.m. rush had fizzled out. By 10:30, there were just 2 customers left inside. One was this old guy, hunched over his tray of nachos, watching some old crime drama on his phone, subtitles on, volume off. The other was a tired-looking woman in blue scrubs standing near the soda fountain, absently stirring her drink like her mind was somewhere far away. The whole place smelled like fryer grease and lemon-scented cleaner. I was stuck at the register. Matt, our cook, was in the back dealing with the fryer, his usual end-of-night mess. Kim, my go-to partner for these shifts, was wiping down tables in the lobby. Just another dead shift. Then the door swung open. 3 teens came in, loud and reckless, like they were riding the last high of the day. They practically crashed into the lobby, laughing too hard, energy buzzing off them like static. One wore a red hoodie with a frayed hem and baggy jeans. Another had chunky headphones hanging around his neck like a fashion statement. The tallest one, skinny with bright blue hair, strutted in like he was the lead singer of a punk band that hadn't made it yet. They were annoying, yeah, but not unusual. Kids like that came in all the time, acting like the world owed them something just for existing. What I didn't notice, at first, was the woman standing quietly near the counter. She must have already been in line when they walked in. Mid-40s, maybe. Stiff posture like she had a steel rod down her back. She wore this long gray wool coat that looked too formal for a fast food place at night. She was staring at her phone, but the second those kids came in, her eyes darted up. Her shoulders tensed, almost like she was bracing herself. The blue-haired kid drifted ahead of his friends, breezing past her like she wasn't even there. He stopped in front of the register and slapped both palms on the counter. That's when the shift happened. "Hey," the woman snapped, voice sharp and loud enough to turn heads. "No cutting." The kid turned halfway toward her, smirking. "Chill, lady. We're just ordering food." Her eyes narrowed. She stepped forward, tight-lipped. "You wait in line like everyone else?" He didn't back down. "It's Taco King, not a courthouse." The two boys behind him snorted and closed ranks beside him. Not threatening exactly, but cocky, like they were daring her to push further. The tension spread through the air like static. I felt my spine stiffen. Glanced toward the kitchen, hoping Matt might poke his head out. Kim had frozen mid-wipe, her hand clenched around the rag, eyes locked on the scene. "Back of the line," the woman said again, louder now, each word deliberate. Her hand was white-knuckled around her phone. The kid in the red hoodie scoffed. "Lady, we're just hungry. Maybe relax before you stroke out." Then she reached into her purse. At first, I didn't register what I was seeing. My brain just refused to put the pieces together. Then a small metallic glint caught the light. Silver, squat, unmistakable. Pepper spray. "Wait, ma'am, no," I said, stepping around the register, but I was too late. She fired. The blue-haired kid shrieked, stumbling back and clutching his face, knocking into a chair as the mist hit him full force. The other two started hacking and cursing, flailing blindly as the invisible cloud spread. The woman didn't let up. Her face twisted with something raw, rage maybe, or something worse, and her finger stayed jammed on the trigger. The restaurant erupted. Screams bounced off the walls. A chair clattered to the floor. The woman in scrubs dropped her drink. The old man bolted out the door so fast he left his phone behind, screen still glowing. Kim shouted my name, but her voice got swallowed in the chaos. And the woman shrieked, high, raw, and emptied the last of the pepper spray in one final burst, her arm rigid, her hand still clenched on the nozzle long after the mist had stopped. Then she jerked the canister back to her chest like it was a shield or a second heart. I stood frozen behind the counter, my body rooted to the tiles, my breath caught somewhere in my throat. This wasn't some heated argument. It wasn't even about fast food anymore. This was a full-blown breakdown unraveling in real time. One of the boys was on his knees, gagging and retching onto the linoleum, his body trembling with every cough. Another had stumbled blindly toward the soda machine, slamming his hand against the buttons, trying to flush his burning eyes with anything, water, ice, anything at all. The third had his shirt pulled up over his face, spinning in confused circles, trying to breathe. "Call the cops!" Kim shouted, her voice sharp with panic. She was already halfway behind the counter, her phone in hand. I'm calling, I stammered, my fingers numb as I pulled out my phone and fumbled across the screen, trying to dial. My hand was shaking so badly I hit the wrong number twice before finally getting it right. 911, what's your emergency? There's a woman here. She sprayed 3 teenagers with pepper spray at Taco King. We need the police, please, and maybe an ambulance. Stay calm, the dispatcher said, her voice like a weighted blanket. Are they conscious? Yes. One's vomiting. One can't see. Please hurry. The dispatcher guided me through what to do next, but my attention kept flickering back to the scene like I couldn't trust it not to get worse. The woman was still talking. No, ranting, her voice wild and rising. They disrespected me. I'm not putting up with this anymore. This is what happens when no one teaches them decency. Her hand shot out, the empty canister trembling in her grip as she pointed it at me like it was still loaded. This is on all of you. Ma'am, I said carefully, my voice quaking as I tried to hold eye contact. Please sit down. Help is coming. Just sit. Don't you lecture me, she barked, taking a slow, deliberate step forward. You saw it. You all saw what they did. They pushed me. That's when Tony came storming out from the back. He was a big guy. Ex-army, broad shoulders, stiff posture. But I'd never seen him look rattled. His boots thudded against the tile as he surveyed the chaos, the teens, the smell, the screaming. Ma'am, he said, voice low and commanding. Put the spray down. Step away from them. That's not a request. They deserved it, she shouted back, her whole body shaking now, not just her voice. No one ever stops them. Then the door swung open with a jarring clang, and 2 police officers came in fast. Their weapons stayed holstered, but both had their hands poised near their belts, eyes scanning, sharp and assessing. Step away from them. Now, one of them ordered, firm and loud. Hands up. For a beat, she just stood there, stunned. Then, slowly, as if in a daze, she raised both arms. The canister slipped from her grip and hit the floor with a hollow rattle. One of the officers moved in immediately, spinning her around and snapping the cuffs on. She started shouting again, about her rights, about justice, about how no one cares what it's like to be a woman in this world, and other things I barely registered. The other officer waved the paramedics inside. They rushed to the teens, helping them outside into fresh air. One of them looked barely conscious. Another kept spitting and cursing. Inside, the chemical sting still clung to everything. My eyes burned. My throat felt scorched. Even the walls seemed to hold the sharp, acidic scent. I coughed into my sleeve and tried to focus on the dispatcher's voice, now repeating something about staying on the line. When the paramedics waved me off, I hung up and just stood there, dazed. I gave my statement a few minutes later, still shaky, still trying to piece together what had just happened. Kim gave hers too, her voice more brittle than usual. Tony kept pacing behind the counter like if he stopped, the weight of it all would crash down on him. Later that night, after the flashing lights were gone and the restaurant sat hollow again, I found myself alone in the break room, sipping lukewarm water and staring at nothing. The silence felt wrong, artificial, like the building was holding its breath. It could have been worse. That thought haunted me. If the boys had pushed back, if the woman had brought something worse than pepper spray, if someone had panicked harder. So many ifs, each one darker than the last. That night stayed with me, changed something in me. Every shift afterward, I caught myself scanning the door a little longer when it opened. I watched hands, purses, the tilt of someone's head. Not paranoia exactly, just hyper-awareness. Like the spell of normalcy had cracked, and now I could see the truth underneath it. The local news picked it up the next day. Pepper spray incident at local Taco King, they called it. Bizarre, shocking, unsettling. That last one stuck with me. Customers started showing up just to say they'd been to that Taco King. Some laughed about it, snapped photos. Others gave me these looks, pitying, like I'd seen combat. And in a way, I had. Not war with guns and soldiers, but a different kind. The kind where trust dies in under 30 seconds, and people become threats without warning. Weeks passed. The woman was charged with felony assault and disorderly conduct. Rumors swirled about lawsuits from the boys' parents. Corporate sent in some upbeat trainer with a slide deck about conflict de-escalation strategies, like we hadn't just lived through a case study. I stayed 5 more months after that. Couldn't afford to quit. But it wasn't the same. Not for me. I started checking every purse with my eyes, every quick movement, every hand reaching for a pocket. And my stomach would knot just a little every time. I'd learned something no handbook could teach. How thin the surface of civility really is. How fast it breaks. How many people are walking around like pressure cookers, just waiting for the right moment to boil over. That woman believed she was right, justified. That her boundaries mattered more than the damage she caused. And that's what really stuck with me. This world is full of people who will burn everything around them and still believe they were just lighting a match. I remember that evening with the kind of clarity that doesn't fade no matter how much time passes. Most childhood memories get soft around the edges, like old photographs left out in the sun. But not this one. This one is sharp. I was 12. The kind of 12 where you're still a kid but starting to notice things. It was early evening, one of those strange twilight hours when the sky hovers between blue and black. Streetlights had just started to blink on, one by one, like slow winks from the town itself. We lived in a quiet corner of Oregon, the kind of place where nothing ever really happened, or at least that's what I believed. It was a Tuesday. I remember because my brother had band practice and my dad was pulling a late shift at the hospital. That left just me and my mom, finishing up some after-school errands. We'd stopped at Target, something about notebooks for school and a new pair of jeans if we found a deal. By the time we were walking out, bags in hand, both of us looked ready to crash. My mom glanced over at me as she slid the bags into the back seat. Want to grab something to eat before we head home? I perked up instantly. Taco Bell? She laughed, already starting the car. Figured you'd say that. There was one just 5 minutes from our place. Back then, Taco Bell was my go-to comfort food. I always got the same thing. Cheesy bean and rice burrito, cinnamon twists, and a Baja Blast freeze. Familiar. Predictable. Like a warm blanket made of sodium and sugar. We pulled into the parking lot, finding a spot near the edge. Not way out, not right up front. Just one of those forgettable middle spaces. I think there were maybe 6 or 7 other cars scattered around. A few had people in them, probably waiting on food or killing time. I didn't think much of it. I was 12. You don't think about the dark corners of the world when you've never had a reason to. Mom cut the engine and rested her hand on the door handle. You coming in or staying put? I shook my head. I'll wait. Can you get me the burrito meal? She smiled and reached for her purse. All right, but lock the doors, okay? Yeah, I said. She shut the door with that familiar thunk, and I reached for the lock on the driver's side. Or, at least I thought I did. I might have been distracted already. TikTok, YouTube, whatever. I can't remember exactly what I was watching, only that I meant to lock the doors. I really did. The car was quiet except for the low hum of passing traffic. The windows were cracked just enough to let in a breeze, cool and a little earthy from the pine trees that circled most of our town. I sat there, scrolling aimlessly. Outside, the sky deepened, dark velvet creeping across the edges of the horizon. A few stars started to blink through, barely visible against the glow of the Taco Bell sign, washing everything in purple. I glanced up every now and then, people watching in that half-distracted way kids do. A guy in a gray hoodie walked out of the restaurant balancing a large paper bag of food. Nearby, a teenage couple perched on the curb by the dumpster, laughing into a shared straw. It felt normal, calm, boring even. And then I saw him. He stepped out of the Taco Bell maybe a minute after my mom went in. Not in a rush, not flustered. He moved with this deliberateness, like every step had been rehearsed. He wore a red zip-up jacket, sleeves casually pushed up to his elbows, and a faded baseball cap pulled low enough to shadow his eyes. He had stubble, messy, like he hadn't shaved in a few days. Just another guy at first glance. But there was something off. The way he walked made my stomach twist. He wasn't heading to a car, he wasn't carrying food. He was just moving, slowly, like he wanted to look aimless, but wasn't. Like he was hunting without alerting the prey. His eyes kept scanning, not panicked or twitchy, calm, methodical, like someone mentally checking boxes. I looked back at my phone, pretending I hadn't noticed him, but in my peripheral vision I caught him shift direction. His path curved slightly, subtly, toward our car. That's when something knotted in my chest. A quiet kind of fear, like a whisper you can't quite hear but know you should listen to. My first thought was that maybe his car was nearby. Maybe he had parked next to us and was just returning. I looked around. Nope. The spot next to us was empty. Just a silver minivan a few spaces down, windows fogged and dark. That one looked empty too. Like he was trying to make himself smaller, but it didn't work. He stuck out in all the wrong ways. He slowed as he reached the back of our SUV, not the side with the doors, not the front, just behind, where I couldn't fully see him unless I turned around. And he stayed there, pacing, loitering in that narrow blind spot where your gut knows something's wrong before your brain does. He didn't come to the window, didn't knock, didn't try to talk or make a sound. He just hovered. I started sneaking glances toward the Taco Bell entrance, willing my mom to walk out, praying to see her silhouette against the fluorescent lights. But the doors didn't open. No one came out. I wrapped my fingers tighter around my phone, thought about locking the doors, really locking them this time. But I hesitated. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to make a noise. Maybe I thought if I hit the button, it would make that unmistakable click and he'd know that I saw him. And then it happened. The back passenger door on the right side clicked open. At first, I didn't move. I couldn't. It was like everything inside me shut off at once. No panic, no scream, just this deep icy stillness. Like I'd fallen through the surface of a frozen lake and didn't even know I was sinking until the cold reached my lungs. My thoughts scattered. It wasn't logical. It was instinct. I didn't even turn to look. I moved. I threw myself over the center console and into the driver's seat in one frantic motion. Not smooth, not clean. My knee slammed into something hard, and my foot caught on the gear shift. But none of that mattered. Adrenaline hijacks your body, makes it flexible, wild, desperate. As I scrambled forward, I felt him. A hand. It touched the small of my back, not yanking, not grabbing, but pressing. Just enough to make my skin crawl. Just enough to feel real. And I screamed, loud. Not words, just a raw, primal sound that tore out of me like it had been buried there, waiting for the moment. I hit the driver's door with my shoulder and shoved it open. Cold air rushed in as my feet hit the pavement and I ran, full speed. The ground felt slick beneath my sneakers, even though it wasn't wet. I didn't care about my phone, didn't care if the car was still running or if the door swung wide open behind me. I ran like the only safe place left in the world was inside that fast food restaurant. The bell over the Taco Bell door chimed as I burst in, too quiet for how hard my heart was pounding. People turned. A guy in line with a cup in his hand stared. A teenage employee paused mid-mop. Everyone froze for half a second. Everyone but me. I ran straight to my mom, still waiting near the pickup counter, scrolling her phone like nothing in the world had changed. Mom, someone got in the car. Her eyes snapped up and everything in her face shifted, confusion, then alarm. Without a word, she grabbed my arm and we sprinted back outside. We reached the SUV in seconds. The back passenger door was wide open, just hanging there, open like an unfinished sentence, like something had come and gone in a hurry. No sign of him, no people nearby, no other car pulling away, no security camera in sight. Just a half-empty parking lot under flickering lights and that door, gaping like a warning. My mom called the police right there. Her voice was steady, but her grip on my hand was like iron. When the officer arrived, he looked around, took a few photos, wrote down notes. He asked me to repeat what I remembered. I told him everything. The red jacket, the baseball cap, the stubble on his face, the way he didn't do anything, didn't say anything. He just watched and waited. The officer nodded slowly. You did the right thing getting out. That's not easy. It's scary, but you handled it. Handled it. I guess that's one way to put it. But what still claws at me is the why. What was he trying to do? He didn't steal anything. Didn't demand money, didn't say a word. He wasn't a thief. He didn't even try to take the car. He just got in. Silently. Deliberately. Like he had all the time in the world. Like he planned to wait until my mom came back. Then what? Was he going to threaten her? Use me? Or maybe he thought no one would notice if I disappeared. Maybe he figured it'd take hours before anyone realized I was gone. That night, my burrito stayed untouched in its wrapper. My Baja Blast sat on the kitchen counter until it melted into neon slush. I curled up under a blanket on the couch, still wearing my shoes, still shaking. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that door slowly creak open. Felt his hand on my back. Wondered, what if I hadn't moved fast enough? For months I couldn't sit alone in a parked car. Even with the doors locked, it didn't matter. My chest would tighten. I'd check the mirrors again and again. And now, every time I see someone pacing in a lot, especially if they're wearing a red jacket or a hat low over their eyes, my stomach drops. Imagined I'd associate real fear with something as ordinary as a Taco Bell drive-thru. But that night, it changed how I look at late nights, quiet parking lots, and even my own front door. It started about 6 months ago. I was working tech support at a call center out west, one of those 24/7 setups that cater to international clients. Our shifts rotated, and more often than not, I got stuck with the late one, 2 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. That particular night had been a grind. Endless calls, technical issues piling up, a supervisor riding me hard for average handle time. By the time I clocked out, I was mentally wiped, burned out to the core. Cooking wasn't even a thought. There's a Taco Bell 5 minutes from my apartment, tucked in a suburb outside Phoenix. The area isn't dangerous, not exciting either. Just a grid of residential streets, strip malls, gas stations, and fast food joints. Boring in a way that used to feel safe. I hadn't eaten since lunch, and Taco Bell's Crunchwrap Supreme had turned into this weird little comfort ritual for me. Guilty pleasure after a long shift. It was around 10:50 p.m. They were still open. The air was unusually warm for October, and I had the windows down, elbow hanging out, some local radio talk show mumbling in the background. Everything felt normal. I pulled into the drive-thru. No line, no cars. Just this strange stillness, like even the neon signs were quieter than usual. I rolled up to the speaker and heard the familiar crackle. "Welcome to Taco Bell. Go ahead with your order whenever you're ready," said the voice, polite but flat. As I started ordering, just a combo meal, nothing fancy, I heard tires crunching behind me. I glanced at the side mirror. A dark sedan had pulled in. Headlights low. Nothing suspicious, not at first. Just another late-night customer. But then, honk. One short, sharp beep. I flinched, not scared, just startled. I looked back again, confused. The driver hadn't moved, still behind me. I instinctively responded to the voice in the speaker, not the driver. Sorry about that." "No problem," came the reply. I rushed through the rest of my order and pulled up to the first window. As I reached for my wallet, honk. Again. Not long. Just another jab of sound. My irritation flared. I tilted the rear view to try and see the driver, but all I could make out was a silhouette. They didn't inch forward, didn't pull around, even though there was room. They just sat there, close. Too close. I turned back around and muttered, "What the hell's your problem, man?" A few moments later, the cashier slid the window open. I paid, grabbed my drink, and waited for the food. 2 minutes passed. Honk. That one made me jump. I was officially spooked now. My heartbeat had kicked up, not full-on panic, but something was definitely off. Who honks like that in a drive-thru? 3 times? Finally, the bag slid into my hands. I muttered a quick thanks and drove forward, taking a left out of the lot, glancing once more into the mirror. The sedan hadn't moved up, not even an inch. But then, as I turned, I saw it pull out behind me. My stomach dropped. It could have been nothing. Just someone taking their time. Maybe they changed their mind. Maybe they were texting. Maybe. But with every turn I made, the car followed. Right onto Ridgeway. It followed. Left onto Glenmore. Still there. I even tapped the brakes to let them pass. Nothing. They slowed too. I told myself, relax. Maybe they live around here. I didn't buy it. My street, LMA Vista, came into view and I made the turn. The sedan kept going straight. Relief hit me so fast I actually laughed. A short, awkward burst. God, you're jumpy. Chill out. I pulled into my driveway, headlights washing over my small duplex. Same patchy lawn, same flickering porch light. I turned off the engine, grabbed my food and drink, opened the door. That's when I heard it. Honk, honk, honk. Rapid, loud, deliberate. I whipped around. The sedan was back. It was crawling past my house now, slow like a predator circling. No more hiding. No more subtlety. I stood frozen, keys in one hand, Taco Bell bag in the other, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. The car sped off, its red tail lights shrinking to nothing at the end of the street. I stood there for a moment, frozen, until the quiet swallowed everything again. Back inside my apartment, I tried to shake it off, tried to act like this wasn't something to be scared of. People are weird, I told myself. Maybe it was some idiot kid trying to be funny, or someone who thought my car looked like theirs and was confused in the drive-through line. I ran through a dozen rationalizations trying to stuff the unease back down. None of them sat right. I dropped onto the couch, food bag on my lap, the TV droning some late-night infomercial in the background. I wasn't watching it. I just needed noise. I picked at my food. The crunch wrap didn't taste right, or maybe I was just too wound up. It was nearing midnight. I felt like my body had finally caught up to the day, tired, heavy, hollow. For a while, nothing happened, and that's what made what happened next so much worse. Around 12:40 a.m., I remembered I was out of essentials, things I couldn't ignore till morning. Toilet paper, toothpaste, some basic groceries. There's a 24-hour grocery store just 2 blocks away. I didn't want to go. Every cell in my body told me to just leave it for tomorrow. But I also didn't want to wake up without toothpaste and a clean towel, so I grabbed my keys and went. The store was nearly empty. Just a cashier and a tired-looking security guard near the doors. I moved quickly, grabbed what I needed, paid in silence, and was out in under 10 minutes. Back home, I parked in the same spot in the driveway. Grocery bag in one hand, drink tucked under my arm, I walked up the front path and stopped dead in my tracks. My front window was cracked, not shattered, but split across the middle like something had forced itself inward. The glass bowed slightly toward the inside of the house, spiderwebbed around the impact point. That window's just to the right of my front door, partly hidden by a hedge. Easy to miss from the sidewalk, but not from where I stood. A cold wave washed over me. It wasn't panic. It was deeper, slower, like something ancient waking up inside my chest. I felt it settle low, dragging everything else down with it. I backed away, slowly. Got back in the car, locked the doors with trembling fingers. Then I dialed 911. The cops showed up within 15 minutes. 2 patrol cars, red and blue lights bouncing off my living room windows. They were calm, but thorough. Flashlights scanned corners, latex gloves on, quiet voices crackling through radios. They swept the house. No one was inside, but someone had definitely been there. The back door was unlocked. That cracked front window was clearly forced, but nothing was missing. Not my laptop, not the wallet I'd left on the kitchen counter, not my car keys still hanging on the hook by the door. One of the officers, Daniels I think, asked a lot of questions. Any issues with neighbors? Exes? Jealous coworkers? Someone mad at me? I told him everything, even if it felt silly. Then I brought up the drive-through, the sedan, the honks, the tailing. He took notes, scribbled in a little notebook, brows furrowed. But he didn't say much. Eventually, they patched the window temporarily, told me to file a full report in the morning, and left. I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed with the hallway light on, curtains cracked just enough to watch the driveway. Every sound made my chest tighten. Every creak of the building sent my thoughts racing. But the car never came back. Not that night, not the next. 6 months have gone by. Nothing else has happened. No more honks, no break-ins, no shadows in the windows. But sometimes I drive past that Taco Bell again, and every single time I get this chill, something cold and crawling just under my skin. I think about that cracked window, how nothing was taken, just entered. As if whoever it was, they weren't looking for things. They were looking for me. And then, 2 nights ago, that's why I'm finally writing all of this down. I was driving home after a late dinner with coworkers. Around 10:45 p.m., I turned onto Loma Vista. Almost home. That's when I saw headlights in my rear view. A dark sedan, same size, same low beams. I turned into my driveway. My stomach twisted. I held my breath. The car slowed as it passed my house. Didn't stop. Didn't pull in. But it honked. Just once. Then it kept going. I stood in my driveway, still gripping the steering wheel with both hands, watching the red taillights fade just like they had that first night. Only now I know something I didn't back then. This wasn't over. It was never over. I used to laugh at the idea of being watched. Now I don't. Now I know better. Whoever was in that car, they weren't done the first time, they were just getting started. I've always loved those quiet summer evening walks home. There's something sacred about that hush after a long day of doing. Not much. The kind of silence that feels earned, like the world is finally taking a breath. That summer, right after high school graduation, the air itself felt like it was holding still, like everything was pausing before life kicked into the next gear. Most of my friends had drifted off, some to part-time jobs, some to summer classes. Others just disappeared into their rooms, trying to savor the last stretch of freedom before college started. Me? I was stuck in this in-between space. College was on the horizon, but it didn't start until late August. So until then, it was just me, this sleepy little town, and the occasional shift at the hardware store out on the edge of it all. My neighborhood never changed much. Same uneven sidewalks. Same creaky screen doors and porch swings. Same gossip that somehow managed to be both boring and oddly specific. And at the end of Elridge Street, still boarded up, was the old thrift store people used to swear was haunted. Then, there was that Taco Bell on Hudson Avenue. You couldn't miss it, wedged awkwardly behind a gas station and across from a mattress store that had been closed for years. People always joked that it had to be going out of business. The place looked abandoned half the time. The sign above the building flickered like it was shorting out, and the parking lot was cratered with potholes deep enough to break an axle. But somehow, it was still open. Always open. still clinging to life like it didn't know it had been forgotten. I hadn't stepped foot in that Taco Bell since I was maybe 10, 11 at most. Back then, my mom would take me there on Friday nights if I behaved during errands. It felt like a reward. As I got older, I stopped going. Something about the place just didn't sit right anymore. Not in an overtly creepy way. More like a place that had frozen in time and no one told it the world had moved on. That Thursday was one of those dry, heavy summer days where the heat doesn't ease up even as the sun starts to dip. I had walked to Millway Park earlier, about 20 minutes from home, just to shoot some hoops and get out of the house. The park was small, 2 busted-up basketball hoops, a court with more cracks than pavement, and a couple of rusted metal benches that always burned your legs if you sat down too fast. I had my headphones in, music low, just enough to blend with the rhythm of the ball hitting the pavement, the occasional clang of the rim. I stayed longer than I meant to. By the time I missed my last shot and looked up, the court was drenched in shadows. I was sticky with sweat, legs tired, stomach empty. Thursdays were bowling league night for my parents, which meant dinner was on me. I wasn't in the mood for another microwave burrito or dry peanut butter sandwich, and as I trudged back down Hudson Avenue, I passed that dimly glowing Taco Bell. The open sign buzzed red like a tired eye in the dark. I paused. I don't know why I went in. Maybe it was nostalgia. Maybe I just didn't feel like going home yet. Whatever the reason, I pushed the door open. Cold air hit me like a wall. The AC was cranked, making the whole He wasn't looking at me. Not exactly. His head was tilted down slightly, hands at his sides, like he was just out for a walk. But something about the way he moved, it didn't feel right. It was too slow, too casual, like it was being performed, like he was trying to seem harmless. My pulse picked up. I turned and walked faster. My shadow stretched long in front of me, distorted by the porch lights I passed. By the time I reached Henley Drive, I was practically jogging. Our house sat 3 doors down from the corner. Small, single story with peeling blue trim and a flower bed my mom kept forgetting to water. The porch light was off, but a soft yellow glow spilled out from the living room window, comforting, familiar. I crossed the yard quickly, stepping over a cracked garden hose, and just as I hit the first step of the porch, I couldn't help myself. I turned. He was on Henley now. No. He had followed me. I froze, breath caught in my throat, one foot still on the step. But then, he didn't come toward me. He veered right, casually, and started walking up the driveway of the house across the street. My neighbors, the Norrises, I think. But that didn't make sense. He didn't knock, didn't ring the bell or call out. He just stood there, halfway up the drive, motionless. My stomach dropped. I waited, watching him for another 10 seconds that felt like an hour. Then I slowly slipped inside, locked the deadbolt, and leaned against the door, trying to convince myself it was fine. Probably lives there, I muttered, or visiting. Nothing weird. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my mom. Mom. Hey, sweetie. We're about to bowl our last game. You doing okay? I took a breath, forced my fingers to stop trembling as I replied. Me. Yeah, just got home. Got Taco Bell. She replied a second later. Mom. Ooh, save me a bite. I smiled a little. We chatted for a minute, her teasing me about my junk food habits. I didn't mention the man. It felt ridiculous now, almost paranoid. Maybe I was just tired and reading into things. About half an hour later, I was camped out on the couch halfway through my crunch wrap, rerun of The Office, mumbling in the background. I was starting to relax. Then, I saw it. Movement. Just at the edge of my vision, near the window. I turned my head. He was there, standing outside the window, inches from the glass. His face was partially lit by the orange streetlight, enough that I could see the blank expression on his face. And he was looking straight at me. My whole body locked up. I dropped the crunch wrap, heart pounding, and shot to my feet. The moment he saw me move, he crouched, fast, and disappeared below the window frame. What the? I ran to the window, yanked the blind shut with shaking fingers, then backed away, every hair on my arm standing on end. I could barely think, let alone breathe. What the hell was that? I grabbed my phone, fingers fumbling as I dialed my parents. My mom answered. Hey, sweetie. There's someone outside the house, I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. A pause. What? Are you okay? Where? The window. Just now, he was staring right at me. We're only 10 minutes out. Lock the doors, we're coming. I hung up, heart still hammering in my chest. I turned on every light in the house, double-checked the locks on every door and window. Then I pulled the hall closet open and grabbed the old wooden baseball bat we kept tucked behind the coats, just in case. When my parents' headlights finally lit up the driveway, I bolted out the front door and pointed. He was right there, at the window, right there. But he was gone. We searched. Our yard, the Norris's yard, up and down the street. No movement, no footprints, no cars idling nearby. Just darkness and crickets. He had vanished. I didn't sleep much that night. Or the nights that followed. I kept replaying it over and over. The way he followed me. The way he stared through the window. How fast he ducked when he knew I saw him. Like he'd been caught doing something he wasn't supposed to. The next day I filed a police report. They were polite but vague. No one matching his description had shown up in any local cases. No signs of a break-in, no damage, no camera footage from neighbors. Just a quiet warning. Stay alert. Call if anything else happens. Nothing ever did. I never thought I'd end up working fast food again. But after college flopped harder than I expected, and my last office job turned into a hellscape of micromanagement and unpaid overtime, I was desperate. That's how I ended up at Rico's Tacos, a locally run Tex-Mex spot on the east side of Denver. It wasn't glamorous by any stretch, but it paid enough to cover rent and keep my cat from starving. I kept telling myself it was temporary, just a stopgap while I figured out what came next. Rico's was one of those places that didn't know exactly what it wanted to be. Half the place looked like a casual sit-down restaurant, while the other half screamed drive-through desperation. The walls were lined with cheap, fake brick wallpaper, and the buzzing neon lights overhead made the whole place feel like a gas station diner trying too hard. The menu was a greasy time capsule: crunch wraps, burritos, taco bowls, and churros that left your fingers shiny for hours. It hadn't changed in years, maybe decades. I worked the front register, same shift, 5 days a week. I was about 6 months in when I started noticing him. Every Thursday, like clockwork, exactly 3 p.m. At the time, I didn't know his name. Later, I'd learn it was Darren Weaver, but back then, we just called him Thursday Guy. The nickname stuck because he never missed a week, ever. He looked like someone pulled from a looping security tape. Same brown hoodie, same baggy jeans that hung off his frame like he'd borrowed them from a scarecrow. His face? Totally average. Not ugly. Not handsome. Just blank. The kind of face you forget instantly, except for his eyes. Too wide, too alert, and always locked on me. Not the menu, not the other customers, just me. Every Thursday, he ordered the exact same thing: 1 spicy crunch melt, cinnamon crisps, and a large Baja Blast. And every Thursday, he'd give me that same tight-lipped smile, barely any teeth, just a thin stretch of skin, and say something like, "You're the highlight of my week, you know that?" Or, "Wish I could take you out of here." I'd force a polite smile, punch in the order, and reply, "That'll be $7.84, pretending it didn't make my skin crawl. Because what else could I say? I didn't want to be rude, but I didn't want to encourage anything either. Keep it short, keep it neutral, keep it safe. He always paid in cash, exact change, and then, without fail, used the restroom. Every single time. He'd disappear down the hall for a few minutes, sometimes longer. At first it was a joke. Nia, one of the cooks, would lean in and whisper, "Oop, your boyfriend's back," whenever his truck pulled into the lot. Carlos, who worked prep in the back, once laughed and said, "He's probably just nervous. You're intimidating, you know." But after a few months, even they stopped joking. The vibe shifted. Darren didn't do anything wrong, not technically. He never touched me, never raised his voice. But there was always this air around him, like a weight in the room. Parents would subtly shift their kids away. Customers glanced at him and then back at me with raised brows. It was like being stared at through one-way glass. You couldn't prove it was happening, but you felt it, deep in your chest, that tight watching pressure. And then one Thursday, something tiny, barely noticeable, started to unravel everything. Darren came in, ordered like always, paid like always, went to the restroom like always. But when he came out, the light in the hallway outside the bathroom flickered. Just a soft stutter. On, off, on. Then it steadied. We'd had electrical issues before, so I didn't think much of it, at first. But then it happened again. The next Thursday. Same flicker, same moment, right after Darren stepped out of the restroom. I mentioned it to Carlos. He barely looked up from his cutting board. Old wiring, he shrugged. Place was built in the 80s. Could be rats, could be ghosts. He smirked, but didn't follow up. Still, I kept noticing. Every Thursday, like clockwork, he'd leave the restroom and the hallway light would flicker. 3 times, then steady. By the 3rd week, it wasn't funny anymore. It was eating at me. I'd catch myself staring down that hallway waiting for the flicker, wondering why it never happened any other time. Just him. Just Thursdays. One night after closing, I stayed late to deep clean the soda machine. Everyone else had left. The restaurant was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional drip from a faucet. I found myself standing at the edge of the dining room, eyes fixed on the hallway. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity, paranoia, instinct. But I dragged a chair over, climbed up, and removed one of the ceiling tiles near the light fixture. payment window stood a bored-looking young man in a grease-stained cap, eyes barely meeting hers. She handed him a crumpled $20. "Your food'll be out soon," he muttered, already turning away before she could say thanks. Mara sat back and let her fingers tap an uneasy rhythm on the steering wheel. A minute passed, then another. No movement. No cars in or out. Just that thick, unnatural silence wrapping around her like a second skin. Then she heard it. A soft, metallic rattle, like someone testing a door handle. It was coming from behind her. She froze. Her breath caught in her chest as her hand darted for the lock button. Click. All 4 doors sealed, and then, bang! A hard kick hit the rear bumper. She twisted around in her seat, eyes wide. Through the fogged back window she saw it, a dark, crouched shape just behind her SUV. Her stomach dropped. A man in a ski mask was sprinting from the bushes near the parking lot. "No, no, no," she whispered, shoving the gear into drive. Her foot slammed the gas. The SUV jolted forward, tires screeching. As she sped toward the exit, her rearview mirror caught the movement of 2 more figures, emerging from the dark, their silhouettes flailing as they chased after her. She could hear the echo of footsteps pounding the pavement even through the closed windows. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. Breath shallow, hands tight around the wheel. She didn't stop driving until the fog thinned and she reached a well-lit main road. It felt like surfacing from underwater, safe. For now. She pulled into a brightly lit 24-hour gas station, slamming the gear into park. The garish fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in cold white light. But at least there were people here. Strangers. Witnesses. Safety. She stepped inside, still trembling. The warmth of the store's interior felt unreal. Mara leaned against the counter, trying to steady her voice. "Hi, do you think you could call the police for me?" she asked. Her voice cracked near the end. The cashier, a woman with dark circles under kind eyes, didn't hesitate. "Of course, hun," she said, reaching for the phone immediately. Mara stood there, eyes brimming. She didn't even try to stop the tears this time. "Thank you," she whispered, voice barely audible. Later, at the Fairmont Police Department, the sterile brightness of the station didn't do much to settle her nerves. She sat stiffly in a hard plastic chair, hands clenched in her lap. Across the desk, Officer Daniels, a man with a calm demeanor and a steady voice, clicked his pen and looked up from his notepad. "So Mara," he said, "you were at Los Amigos around 12:30? "Yes." She nodded, barely lifting her eyes. Her voice was hoarse. "I just wanted to grab some food after work. I ordered 2 beef burritos and then someone tried to open my car door." Her arms folded tight across her chest, holding herself together. Outside the station, the city buzzed on. But for Mara, something in it had shifted. Something real. Something dangerous. "Then they kicked my car," Mara said, her voice trembling as she sat stiffly across from Officer Daniels. "I saw one guy in a ski mask run off toward the bushes and 2 others were chasing him." She paused, swallowing hard. "I don't know what was going on. I panicked." Daniels scribbled quickly in his notebook, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Did you see where they went?" She shook her head. "No. They disappeared into the bushes near the edge of the parking lot. It happened so fast I could barely process it." The officer leaned back slightly, tapping his pen against the page. "We've had a few complaints from that area," he said, glancing up. "Mostly late-night break-ins and petty thefts. But nothing like this. Nothing this aggressive." Mara looked down at her hands, her fingers knotted together. "So I'm not the first?" "No," he said, "but you're the first to report something this serious. I'll make sure we increase patrols around that stretch." She nodded slowly, but the heaviness in her chest didn't budge. The station's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, and the sterile air made her feel like she was shrinking. In the days that followed, Mara couldn't shake the feeling. At work, Every engine in the diner's parking lot made her tense. Every unfamiliar customer who lingered too long near the entrance made her pulse jump. Her co-workers noticed, especially Jen, who worked the register. "You okay?" Jen asked one evening, watching Mara jump when a car honked outside. "You seem off." Mara forced a thin smile, rubbing her arms like she was cold. "Something happened after work. Scared the hell out of me." Jen's eyes softened. "You want to talk about it?" Mara hesitated, then shook her head. "Not yet." At home, her anxiety tightened its grip. She checked every window twice, every lock 3 times. Even in her small apartment, she felt exposed. She avoided going out after dark unless absolutely necessary, and when she did, her hand never left her keyring. One night, she sat beside her window for hours, eyes scanning the street outside. The only movement came from flickering streetlights and the occasional passing car. Still, her thoughts looped. What if they had been watching, waiting? What if it wasn't random? The idea chilled her. Weeks passed. She stopped taking Elm Street on the way home. She never went near Los Amigos again. Her world shrank to a handful of well-lit streets and predictable routines. Then one afternoon, while walking back from the corner store, a man in a dark hoodie brushed past her. His shoulder barely grazed hers, but the jolt it sent through her chest was immediate. She froze, heart racing. She forced herself to keep walking. "I can't live like this," she whispered aloud, voice shaking. But the city still felt haunted. Weeks turned to months, and the fear didn't vanish. It softened, dulled by time, but it never really left. Every shadow in a parking lot, every slow-moving car at night, they all fed the same feeling, that the men from that night hadn't been just strangers, that they had chosen her. Then one rainy evening, Mara sat on her small balcony, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the hiss of water on concrete. The city lights blurred through raindrops like smudged pastels. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Officer Daniels. "We found something at Los Amigos. Security footage. 2 men loitering near your car that night. We're investigating." Her stomach flipped. Relief and dread tangled together in her chest. The next day, she walked into the police station again. Daniels met her at the desk and led her into a back office. He pulled up the footage on an old monitor. The quality was poor, grainy and dark, but there was no mistaking what she saw. 2 masked men crouched low beside her SUV, tugging at the handles. "They were definitely trying to get in," Daniels said quietly. "Looks like they..." It was just shy of midnight when Jesse and I finally left campus. The last exam had wrapped up only minutes earlier, but the strain of a whole day filled with back-to-back tests, lectures, and frantic note-taking had completely drained us. My stomach growled, loud enough to be heard over the soft hum of my old sedan as I pulled out of the parking lot. "We should get something to eat before we hit the road," I said, shooting a glance at Jessie. Her arms were wrapped around herself, and she was rubbing her hands together for warmth. The spring air had a bite to it that night. "Yeah, I'm starving," she mumbled, letting out a tired sigh. "An hour-long drive on an empty stomach sounds like hell." I nodded, already scanning the road ahead. "There's got to be something open this late." She squinted through the windshield at the desolate stretch of highway just outside Fairhaven. Most of the shops and houses we passed were dark, the town seeming more asleep than alive. When I spotted a green exit sign a few yards ahead, I veered toward it without much thought, hoping we'd find a 24-hour diner, or maybe even a fast food place with a flickering sign still glowing. The exit led us down a narrow, cracked road where the streetlights blinked like they were on their last breath. It felt like we'd crossed into a forgotten corner of the town. Then we saw it. A Taco Bell, its faded neon sign buzzing faintly. The light was weak, but enough to cast a weird purplish hue across the mostly empty lot. I pulled in, noticing immediately that the drive-through lane was blocked by orange cones. A hand-scrawled sign taped to the speaker read, "Drive-through temporarily closed. Sorry for the inconvenience." "Well, I guess we're going in," I muttered. We got out, the cold air nipping at my skin as the door creaked shut behind us. The bell above the entrance gave a dull jingle, and as we stepped inside, the warmth barely registered. The place was oddly quiet. No music, no kitchen sounds, just the soft hum of the overhead lights and the buzz of the sign outside. The dining area was dim, too dim. Booths sat empty, trays were stacked neatly, and yet something about the place felt stale, lifeless. Jessie's voice broke the silence, barely louder than a breath. "This place feels weird," she murmured, tugging her jacket tighter. "Like, off." I shrugged, trying to sound more casual than I felt. "It's probably just the time. No one's out this late." We walked up to the counter. A young guy stood there, probably college-aged, with tired, bloodshot eyes and a blank expression. He didn't greet us, just stared until we gave him our order, then turned without a word to punch it in. The fluorescent lights above us flickered once, then again. I couldn't help but glance toward the dark windows behind us, suddenly aware of how isolated we were. As we waited, the front door creaked open. My head turned instinctively. A man walked in, slow, like he had nowhere to be. He was tall, maybe in his late 40s or early 50s, with thick glasses that caught the light and obscured his eyes. His long, greasy hair hung past his collar, and his flannel jacket looked like it hadn't been washed in months. But what made my skin crawl wasn't his appearance. It was the way he just stood there, not ordering, not moving past the threshold, just staring at us. "Do you see that?" Jessie whispered, leaning closer. Her voice was sharp with tension. "He's looking right at us." I tried to act like I hadn't noticed, like it didn't bother me. But my heart was thudding in my chest. Every instinct told me something was wrong. The man didn't break eye contact as he finally stepped inside and took a seat in the far corner, still staring, still not blinking. The cashier slid our bags of food across the counter, and I snatched them up with a forced smile. "Thanks," I mumbled, though he didn't acknowledge it. We practically bolted. Outside, the night air felt colder, sharper. As we approached my car, my gut twisted. His car was parked right next to mine. There were maybe 2 other vehicles scattered around the lot, plenty of space everywhere. But his was right up against mine. It couldn't be coincidence. "Let's just eat in the car," I said quickly, my voice unsteady. Jessie nodded without saying a word, her eyes locked on his vehicle as we got in and locked the doors. Before we could reach the car, I caught movement from the corner of my eye. The man had stepped out of the Taco Bell and was walking toward us, slow, deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. My chest tightened instantly, an invisible weight pressing against it. Every nerve in my body screamed, "Go." "Get in the car," I said sharply, fumbling for my keys. Jesse didn't hesitate. We dove into the vehicle, slamming the doors shut and locking them just as he reached the edge of the lot. He stopped standing there for a moment, then turned without a word and got into his own car, the one parked suspiciously close to ours. He didn't drive off. He just sat there, engine off, staring at us through the windshield. His face was shadowed, but I could see the outline of his head, still, watching. "I don't like this," Jesse whispered. "Me neither." I twisted the key in the ignition, and the engine coughed to life. A second later, so did his. I threw the car into reverse, heart pounding as I backed out and pulled onto the road. My hands gripped the steering wheel too tight, my palms damp with sweat. Then I looked into the rearview mirror. He was following us. The road stretched ahead like a black ribbon, lit only by the occasional glimmer of distant headlights. The town faded behind us, swallowed by the night. Out here, it felt like the world had emptied out. No traffic, no streetlights, just us and him. I tried to keep my breathing steady, but my hands were trembling. "Is he still behind us?" Jessie asked, twisting in her seat. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Too close." His headlights loomed in the rear view, blinding and aggressive. He was tailgating, barely a car length behind. My stomach turned as I pressed harder on the gas, the speedometer inching up. Then suddenly he changed lanes and gunned it, pulling up beside us. I let up on the gas slightly, hoping he'd just pass and disappear into the night. But he didn't. He matched my speed. I turned my head. He was right there, just feet away. And his face, God, his face. It was lit up by his dashboard, twisted in a grin so wide it looked inhuman. His eyes were wild, unfocused. That smile didn't belong to someone in control. It was something else, something broken. Then he swerved. Without warning, he jerked the wheel toward us. "Hang on!" I shouted, slamming the brakes and yanking the steering wheel hard to the right. Our tires screamed as we skidded onto the shoulder. His car whipped past us, spinning out wildly. The sound of metal scraping asphalt followed by a loud crunch rang out as his vehicle tore into the ditch on the opposite side of the road. We sat there, frozen, the only sound our rapid breathing and the soft ticking of the engine. I could see him struggling inside his car, trying to move, trying to back out. But the wheels just spun uselessly, buried in dirt and grass. "Call the cops," I breathed. Jessie already had her phone out, fingers trembling as she dialed. Her voice wavered, but she got the words out. The dispatcher assured her officers were en route. We stayed put, locked in, hearts still racing. The silence between us felt heavier than before, but oddly, safer. The police arrived within minutes. Red and blue lights cut through the darkness like beacons, sweeping across the empty stretch of road. 3 cruisers boxed in the area, and officers stepped out cautiously, hands on flashlights and radios crackling with low, clipped commands. From our car, we watched them approach the wreck. They surrounded the man's vehicle, speaking firmly but calmly. He didn't resist. They pulled him from the driver's seat and cuffed him with quiet efficiency. It felt surreal. How fast it all had escalated, and now how calmly it ended. 2 officers came to our window, took our statements, asked for every detail. We told them everything. They listened carefully, nodding, faces serious. "We'll be keeping patrols around this area more often," one of them said reassuringly. "You did the right thing getting out of there." We thanked them quietly, still too shaken to fully process it all. The drive home was silent. Jessie stared out the passenger window, arms crossed, while I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, even though I knew he was gone. But the fear lingered. Even days later, I found myself checking the locks twice before bed, flinching at every unexpected noise. My heartbeat quickened if a car slowed down near my street. I avoided empty roads, avoided that Taco Bell exit, avoided being out late whenever I could. Because that night changed something. The man, the chase, that look in his eyes. It was too close, way too close.